What is your path to Dharma? Well, welcome back to the Path to Dharma podcast.
Welcome, welcome.
Let's get right into it. Yes, I'm Shay, and this is my beautiful mother, Shannon, and we are reading out of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our second podcast episode on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you'd like to go back and watch our first one, we'll link that somewhere around here. But we want to begin with a question that something that we've gotten multiple times in our comment section since we've been reading this ancient Indian literature. And that is, are you sure you can understand this through the mind of a Westerner? And so we want to address that and talk about that a little bit before we get into the text. So, Mother, what do you think about that question or that comment?
Okay, so my true answer is this. I had this dream, really super vivid dream, and Krishna appeared to me and he told me that he knows me and that I spent 3 lifetimes devoted to him and that he's my friend and he's here to help me. And after that happened, I then now went back and have tried to figure out who is this being Krishna. And I say that, and I know that sounds like a lot. Like I'm saying God appeared to me, but it was a dream. And like it came right after I listened to the Bhagavad Gita. And I say to myself, wait a second, is it possible that I spent 3 lifetimes in devotion to Krishna, reading all of this and knowing all of this? And I decided possibly I wanted to get a different perspective. So I took birth over here in America as this woman who doesn't know anything about this. And now gets to lay fresh eyes on it, finding out, rediscovering Krishna, no less, rediscovering and finding out that, wow, actually, can you hear that?
No.
Okay. What's crazy is there's like just as I'm talking about Krishna, suddenly the phone is ringing on the Discord. So it's like what I hear is like a phone ringing. So it's like the sound. So like that's what I'm saying. Is it
Okay.
possible that all of those things happened and here I am rediscovering Krishna, rediscovering the Bhagavad Gita, rediscovering the Bhagavatam and getting to read it again. And that's what it feels like. So, can my Western mind grasp it? Yes, in a way that my Western mind is here to grasp it. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't undo any of the programming and the culture that I've experienced already up to this point. And actually, that was the point, was for
Mm-hmm.
me to actually have a whole different life experience without Krishna. And I've already spoken about another vision I saw was Krishna just teasing me about I was going to forget about him. And I was saying I would never forget you. You're my beloved. And I remember that, but I indeed did forget Krishna. So yeah, we are going to look at this differently, but be assured that we're not taking this lightly. This
Right.
isn't us just, saying, hey, we want to make a viral video about look at the difference between, what we've learned and what's in here, or that's not what's happening. We are literally reading it real time, reacting real time to this thing, both the Gita and the Bhagavatam. And like what we're finding out is blowing our mind. And what we're
Mm-hmm.
finding out is like delicious, delicious knowledge. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
it feels like. So I don't know how to process it any other way but the mind that I've taken body in. So that's my answer.
I love it. And I will just echo you and say that I have spent many lifetimes with Krishna as well. Past life regressions have showed me
Yeah.
times where I have spent in India where I've known this knowledge, like grown up with this knowledge. And I think it's so beautiful that, like you said, we get to rediscover it in this whole different perspective without growing up with those natural tendencies that people who may grow up in India know. And I think that's part of why we're here. Part of our gift to the world is to be able to show what we're learning through this Westerner's perspective so that we can reach more people who are just like us, who may feel intimidated to open up or crack open this ancient knowledge because they don't think it's for them. It is. Krishna says it's for you, it's for
Yeah.
everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a Westerner or not. This information is for everyone. So, like you said, and I've said this multiple times, the first time I ever heard the Gita, I was like jumping up and down, running laps, and still, it's like I was just saying before we actually pressed record. I was just opening up the Srimad Bhagavatam and I read the first 6 chapters over again this morning. Um, and just flipping through it to get to the pages that we wanted to get to, I'm like rereading things that are just and it's like I forgot that I read that, and it's like giving me such inspiration again.
Again.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So of course
Yeah.
we chose this, right? And another comment that we've been getting a lot is like, don't stop them in their path of dharma or their of karma. Like we have incarnated here as these two beings reading this book on YouTube. So it's just like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Honestly, it really is.
Yeah.
I feel so gifted and blessed to be here doing this. And again, a lot of our questions, I want to talk about us making the link between Kali Yuga and the divine goddess Kali, because this is real time. It's like we don't practice anything before we get
Yeah.
on here. We might talk about like what chapter we want to go to. In fact, we try not to talk
We
about this
do.
off camera because we want it to be real authentic reactions to one another. And I'm dying to I know you have some things in your head that you've been not telling me because you wanted it to be on camera. So I'm super excited to get there. Um, but yeah, I want to talk a little bit about our Kali and Kali Yuga connection because we watched this video. This woman, I cannot remember her name. Do you know her name?
I don't remember her name either, but she was
But we'll
talking.
link her video or something because
Yeah.
she is amazing, and we've made another video about this being a word witch and just how everything is so interconnected, and there is no possible way in my mind that the divine goddess Kali is not related, spelled exactly the same, to Kali Yuga.
Okay, well, so as I understand it now that I've looked a bunch of stuff up, yeah, a
Oh
bunch
yeah.
of stuff up on this. It isn't the same. It isn't the same being, but see, the
No,
whole thing that we're saying is like, I know, but it sounds exactly the same. So there's no mistaking that it sounds like the same. And it, yes, possibly we don't understand the Sanskrit and like there's some nuance there that we're not
sure.
grasping. And I do think that there's an element of that for sure. But I guess our point being like, okay, what is the Kali Yuga then? And what it is, it's a time of darkness. It's time when intelligence leaves the earth, when wisdom leaves the earth, correct? Is that what we're hearing?
I've gathered about that. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of how I've gathered too.
It's in
Okay,
here
so
somewhere.
so to my thought, because that's what we're in, um, and correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Krishna show up not in if Kali Yuga starts when he leaves,
Yes.
then he's there in the previous Yuga, which old Yuga they
Yes.
would be at half darkness and half ignorance and half of wisdom already gone. Am I gathering that correctly?
Maybe. I don't think I'm the right person to ask, but keep
Okay. Well,
going.
here,
But
okay,
keep
my
rolling.
thought is this, all right? Like
Keep rolling.
we know that there's like a time where it was not quite as bad. And then Krishna left the earth and then now we call Yug and that's like we're going to be in the darkness until it Krishna overcomes
Mm-hmm.
the Kali Yuga and the age like the age of enlightenment re-begins, right?
Yep.
The cycle. It's the
Yep.
cycle. Okay. Here's my thought. Okay, so if wisdom is part of what has left the earth, what I've noticed is that, and we've said this already, the female roles that show up within Hinduism, within the Bhagavatam, within the Gita, it's mainly main characters are men for the most part. Yes, I
Right.
understand the cultural surroundings of when these things were taking place and women's role in society being lesser. Okay. And people also, I want to bring up a lot of people have asked us about what versions we're reading. No, we're not ISKCON. No, we're not. And actually, but this is what we have. I will say this, I'm not really reading the commentary. Good or bad, I will just say I'm not. And part of it is because I read something in the commentary by Swami P, which basically was like, women are no better than boys and they can't understand this. And he wrote a whole chapter called The Frailty of Women, which I'm sorry, but I just cannot. So like to
Mhm.
me, it's like, okay, all right, I get it that that was part of possibly what was going on. Women, however, I got stuck a lot on the story of Draupadi because like basically she's given as property. I watched the Mahabharata, by the way, and she's given to the Pandava sons. Okay. And women are generally in that type of a much more subservient role. But as you read in the Bhagavatam, like the women have different, kind of these different intimate relationships with Sri Krishna. And you read these stories that are occurring, like these conversations and what they're saying to him. And so there's zero part of me that actually thinks that Krishna would actually think that women are lesser or lesser class or anything like that. Okay.
Mhm.
And it says Krishna loves everybody, and everybody, if you're his devotee, he's devoted to you. And there's many stories of him saving these faithful, devoted women. And so I
Mhm.
know that about Krishna, and he's not tempted or he's not moved by the modes of material nature. So he's not driven by any of that. We already know that about him as well. Okay.
Yep.
So I don't believe that he would say half of the human population was lesser than another. All
Mhm.
right. But like when I asked Krishna about this, because this is the whole thing, then if I'm not going to the commentary and I'm not really reading it, I will just say I do have a spiritual master, a spiritual guru that I can go to. But very often I go to Krishna, and that might be a difference between maybe my Western mind. Okay. Because, like, essentially, how the churches were set up at some point, the Christian churches were set up, how you had to go to the priest, and only the priest had the knowledge, and only the priest was the only ones who could educate. But then we had the Reformation, which basically was about no, you can read the Bible yourself. You can literally go pray yourself. You can go to the Lord yourself and just ask. So I guess I'm coming from that. And so I go to Krishna and I say to Krishna, like, what's up with this? Because I
Mhm.
don't think that you feel lesser. I don't think I'm lesser. I've been everybody. And Krishna knows that. He knows all my lives. And sometimes I'm female and sometimes I'm male. And I don't feel like he's judging me for either sex or gender that I have taken birth in this time. Okay. So my thought is this, like, what's up with this, Krishna? Ugh, his answer.
Give it to me. I'm like all ears right now.
It's
Come on.
literally just one word. And actually, like, I just want to say that I've been
Of
reading
course.
chapter 6 in here, which is like the women gathering on the rooftop to like gossip about beautiful Krishna. Okay. And this is the energy of his answer to me. I'm like, what's up with that, Krishna? And he's just like, you know what? He doesn't even say, you know what? He just looks at me in my vision and he's like, Kali Yuga. That's it. That's part of it. That's part of
Mhm.
the Kali Yuga. That's part of it. And actually, we don't know where the karma of the matriarchy has been. We don't know what the matriarchy's done. We don't know because like society's been wiped out for, we only know about the last 12,000 years of like humanity's existence. Okay. So Kali Yuga that's part of it. That's part of it. Like the wisdom of women has been disregarded, like the crone energy. And we've talked about this before, like this idea of like the ancient wisdom, the women's wisdom, like in the tradition of maiden, mother, and crone. And this is like a definitely a Western idea of like worshiping a way to worship the divine feminine.
Mhm.
And every woman is maiden, every woman is mother, whether or not you give birth. It's a matter of like you go into a different part of your life, right? It's like the virgin, the mother, and the
Mhm.
crone. And you have to be all three to be the crone. And the crone is the one with the power because she's been the maiden and the mother. And so
Mhm.
she has the perspective and she has the wisdom. And she's been the wisdom keeper. And she's been the one who has been the healer. But then suddenly she became the witch. And suddenly she was dangerous and she became the crone and she became the demon. And so
Mhm.
that's what I wonder. That's what I ask myself. Kali Yuga is a female demon. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. That's part of it. So there may have been times in history where the matriarchy, the divine feminine, actually overcame the divine masculine. And this is part of our karma that we're going through. And as humanity, Mother Earth, Gaia herself, has to meet her shadow. So I stick by that. And I know that that's true also. So also Kali Yuga, Krishna says to me. And so I know that's truth. So Hare Krishna on that, right? Just,
Hare Krishna, you have me on the edge of my seat. I love it. You're preaching to the choir, sister.
Okay, so
I love that. Okay, well, before we even get into anything more, let's read the
yeah,
little.
let's read our obeisances or
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, this supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, um, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasudev, the author. I want to read this other little part too. By
yeah,
regular attendance in the classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
beautiful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What a
Okay, so
beautiful download. Thank you,
what
Krishna.
yeah. So I want to actually start on we're on chapter 1. No, sorry. Canto 1, chapter 3, text 40.
Mm-hmm.
It's on page 175 if you're following with me in
Yep.
the Srimad.
Mm-hmm.
This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God. And I want to even pause right there and take that moment, take that in.
Yeah.
It's a literary incarnation of God. And actually, we're about to read about all the different incarnations of God,
Mm-hmm.
18 different incarnations. So I just want to just take a moment of the beauty and depth of that sentence. It's not even that's not even the whole sentence. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. So God writes it himself. It's meant for the ultimate good of all people. And it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. So I take that as anyone and all peoples can read it. So we
Yep.
know to continue. Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who's the most respected among the self realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. So it's full of this beautiful knowledge. And like somebody pointed out about even saying Vyasadeva or Vyasadeva, and like even Krishna or Krish, like Sri Krish. Like, okay, so when I was watching the Mahabharata cartoon, they didn't put the A on the end of those, any of them. In fact, they said like Arjun instead of like
Mm-hmm.
Bhishma. It was like Beam instead of Bhima. Like there was a bunch, they dropped the A's on a bunch of it. So, but then
Mm-hmm.
I noticed also later they called him Krishna. So I'm really curious about that. Is that how do people usually pronounce it? Because in here, Vyasadeva has a A on it. So am I supposed to say the A?
Well, I think just in Sanskrit, like the A is just silent or the A is, just pronounced differently. That's where it's like, I just sent you a link last week about taking a Sanskrit class because I think it would be so
Yeah,
beneficial for us as we read this. Yeah.
I
So
think
I
so
don't know.
too.
Drop comments down below. Tell us what you think. I remember reading one comment that was like, just say it. Just say it however you say it.
Yeah.
We know the purpose of what we're trying to say.
Yeah, that's true. Do you want to read text 42?
Sure. Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasudev, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great emperor of Pariksit. How do you
Pariksit?
say
Pariksit. I've been struggling with that one for
Pariksit?
a while.
Pariksit,
Yeah.
who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink. So, Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasudev, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great emperor. So, Vyasudev extracted the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe, created the Bhagavatam, passed it on to his son,
Right.
Sukadev Goswami, who
I believe
then,
so.
yeah, the son of Vyasadeva,
Who was an
yes,
incarnation of God, right? Yasadeva.
yes.
Yes. So
So
he tells his son.
he tells his
Yes.
son, who tells the emperor who was sitting on the bank of the Ganges,
Right. Who's sitting there waiting to die
yes,
because he was cursed by the son of a Brahmin who actually, I don't even know if we talked about this story of last week, but I did read about what happened there, basically, and why the king gets
Talk about it.
cursed. It's like a almost a misunderstanding in a way, because basically he shows up to Vyasadeva's house to talk to him, but Vyasadeva is in the middle of a deep, deep trance and doesn't notice the king. And the king gets basically offended that he's not offered like food and drink or whatever, because he's the king. And everywhere he goes, you can imagine there's a whole train of people around him. You can imagine like
Mm-hmm.
he gets offered. So like he thinks he's being ignored. So he like puts a snake around Vyasadeva's neck and leaves. And the son sees this, gets mad, and then says to the king, like, you're going to get bit by a snake and die. Well, if Yasadeva basically comes out of the trance is like, what? Or whatever. And like, it doesn't seem like he's like, that's not what he would have wanted to happen. And if I got that story wrong, I know you'll all correct me, but like,
Mm-hmm.
essentially that's what happens. And then the king, he's figures out he's going to die, gives all his stuff away, heads down to the Ganges. All the sages gather. We're about to hear a recitation of the Bhagavatam. And then we're about to, over the next few several pages, I would say, we get a breakdown of like basically Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and it just goes into it. Chapter four then starts the appearance of Sri Narada, and it starts to go into all of the different incarnations of Krishna, and it's actually really cool. And this is where
Yes.
we found out that Buddha
Right? Okay,
is
well, let's
a
not skip over
right now.
text
There's like we're getting ahead.
43 because 43
I
is
don't want to
good.
get ahead.
I like it.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
the the Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana,
So it's as if
which I love.
he left himself in literary form. And we keep hearing how Krishna is vibration and Krishna is sound. So
Yes.
it's kind of interesting that and we've heard that he likes to have his name chanted. He likes to have his name said. He likes all of that. So that's why he wants us to read the Vedas. I bet you, I'm guessing he likes to hear it out loud. He likes
Yeah.
to hear the sound of it because it's what is he telling us? He's like telling us basically this is how to not get stuck in the dense darkness of the age that we're in, of ignorance, of darkness, where the wisdom, where all of that is much more difficult, but not impossible to get. And it seems like you can get enlightened during the age of Kali. Like
Right.
you can. So are we on to text 44?
44, which I'm just trying to figure out who is talking here. Maybe you can. Oh, learned Brahmins. When Sukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there, in the presence of the emperor, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him, as I have realized it.
Yeah, who is talking there?
I don't know.
It is a little confusing, and I have listened to it back and forth because I feel like there's a couple different places where they'll be talking about several people. Like like they'll call someone the son of Yasadeva, and then in another sloka, I think we're calling that right. They call him his name, Sukadeva Goswami.
Yeah.
So I do feel like we're still hearing from um Sutta Goswami, right?
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think this is still Sutta Goswami, yes.
I think
Be-
you're right.
because if you remember in the
Oh,
scene,
yes. That all we gotta do is go to the next
oh,
verse,
it
and
says it. It says it. Okay.
clears it up.
Okay.
Yep. This is now chapter 4, right? Yep. Canto 1, chapter 4, text 1. On
Yeah.
hearing Sutra Goswami speak this,
Yes.
Sanaka Muni, who is the elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Sutta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So
Yes.
yes, it
And then he
was.
goes into a whole thing, which this is another pattern that I noticed in here. And I noticed it over and over. And I think this is probably what it is. it's like before they ask a question, they go into a giant like obeisances. They go into a whole thing. And even like in the little bit later chapter when somebody's talking to Krishna, they start by saying, "Oh Krishna," and then like goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like there was a scene that's actually pretty tense, and Krish and Arjuna is like going to Krishna. And it's like pretty serious, and he still starts with Krishna, and he goes into it, and I'm like, wouldn't you be like, hey, or whatever?
Right.
But that never happens. They always start with like a lot of like respect and like devotional kind of language, which is so beautiful and interesting, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Sanaka said, "Oh, Sutta Goswami, I'm in text two here.
Yep.
You are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Sukadeva Goswami." And then he asks, "In what period and at what place was this first begun? And why was this taken up? From where did Krishna, the Krishna, this is another whole person. I can't even say that name. Shay, can you say that name? From
Payana.
Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature. You know what this is? It's probably just like a combination of the name Krishna
I
and Vyasa Deva, because that's the same being that he's referring to here.
I
Yeah.
think so.
So he's asking, where did he get the inspiration? And the answer, his, Vyasadeva's son, was a great devotee. So this is actually like he's saying his son, Vyasadeva's son, Vyasadeva being the incarnation of God
And the author.
and the author. His son was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist whose mind was always concentrated on monism. His transcendental, his transcendental to mundane. Wow, he was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. Okay, this is super interesting. This is the story that it's like
Yeah.
at first time I heard this, I did not understand really what was happening here at all. So basically, Vyasadeva's son is a devotee, okay? And he's very devoted to his lifestyle. He's very devoted basically to Krishna, so much so that he appears like an ignorant person to others. So what does that, I guess my question, what does that really mean? Okay, here is my first thought when I very first read this. I was like, what is he like on the spectrum? Is he like, do you know what I'm saying? Is that what's happening here? Like he's just not of the same um somebody who's like on the autism spectrum where they live in a slightly different like reality than the rest of
Perception.
us,
Yeah.
perception slightly off. That's what I was wondering, was he talking about? But he's saying that he was a liberated soul. That's what it was.
Perception not off, just different, right?
But if you were the son of literally the divine
Vyasudev.
person, the divine person of Godhead, you'd think you would be a liberated soul. So that's really what it is. It's a
Yeah.
liberated soul. So like the story says, it goes on in text 5. While Sri while Sri Vyasadeva was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth. Although Sri Vyasadeva himself was not naked, but they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them, made no distinction between male and female. But the sage made such distinctions, which is super interesting. So basically, what they're saying is like the son passed us by, and he didn't see us as male or female. That's how enlightened and how basically liberated his soul was, meaning
Mm-hmm.
possibly he saw the true nature of his existence as a divine being. So he didn't see it. It wasn't anything for him to react to. He wasn't reacting to the modes of material nature at all. So that's pretty interesting. So, and I do believe because the story is being related by Vyasadeva, who of course would already know this, right? But like this is part of what we're supposed to learn. Everything in here is in here purposefully. And that's the one other part that I've noticed about this. And we've already heard this is the literary incarnation of God. So every single word, every single story is supposed to tell us something. So this is
Right.
what is it we're supposed to learn? And I get it. That's why people read the commentary. I do get it. But for
I get that
me,
too.
yeah, for me, like what resonates is like for me to just really think about it a little bit, go to the universe on it, read the Gita. Like, yeah, I
Have
might
conversation. Yeah.
have conversation. I definitely might read the commentary, and I do sometimes will read the commentary. It's just I sort of feel like part of the digestion of all of this, because there is a lot. And
A
yes, we see
lot.
all the comments of read this and yes, okay, yes. But part of it is like just the energetic intake of this.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'll read a sentence like this is, this is the literary incarnation of God. And I'm like, wait, I might think about that for 7 hours.
Right.
Like, wait a second, what? Okay, what does that even mean? Because part of the Western thought is that when you think about religion, there's an element of faith that goes to it. Like I have to
Mm-hmm.
have faith that this is real. I don't know that this feels more experiential to me. And I don't know that there is any what's the debate out there in Hinduism whether or not this is a real literal event. Like is Vyasadeva, was he a human person or is this an allegorical thing? Is this like a as
I think they think this is all
I
based
believe so
on,
too. I
yeah,
think so
I
too.
think.
But also I wonder to myself, I don't know, there's definitely Christians who are like the earth is 6,000 years old and Jesus was a real human. And there's others that are like, nah, that's like allegorical. Like
Right.
this story is just meant to actually bring you closer to God.
Right.
In some ways doesn't matter.
Right.
But my point, I guess, being that part of because we don't know anything about this, and maybe everyone has heard these stories if you're used to it in your culture, part of it is like, wow, like I really have to think about why is that even in there? What's in there? What's this trying to tell me? Like, what does a liberated soul look like? Like,
Right.
what does that, how is that experienced as a being on earth? How will I know as I get closer to liberation? You know what I mean? What does that look like? What can that look like? So
Mm-hmm.
like it's so interesting. So like even moving on. So it's like, how was he recognized by the citizens when he entered the city after wandering the provinces, like appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? So basically they go on to say like the son, he like they previously said that he looked like he was an ignorant person. He's like a madman. He's like, but is it that he's so he's so in the other dimension? He's so out there that he's not like we were saying, he's in a different reality
Yeah,
completely
he's not registering the mundane,
at all.
the modes of material nature, right? Which
Yeah,
I'm sure would make you look like a madman. You know, I've felt
I think
bits and
so.
pieces of that just reading this. It's like if somebody came into my house and I was reading this and like running laps around my house and like talking about Krishna, they would probably think I look like a mad person.
Yeah, no doubt.
And
No,
that's just like a tiny little taste. That's not even to the level that Uta, whatever his name is. What is his name now? I can't remember.
Sutta Goswami. You're going to talk about Sutta Goswami. You're talking about Sukadeva.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that even the right name? I think so. Yes. Okay. So, I feel like again, kind of like where we're at and kind of digesting a little bit of this kind of before we even before we move on, I really want to sort of digest again what we've heard up to this point because like we haven't gotten far in the story so to speak at all. Very far at all. I mean, pretty
Right.
much the king's on the bank of the river. The sages show up. Here comes Sutta Goswami. They're about to have a discussion of the Bhagavatam.
Well, and the sages, they're often in a forest, right? They're getting ready for this big
Yeah.
sacramental ceremony for the beginning of Kali Yuga, right?
Oh, uh,
And so they
yeah.
are in the forest somewhere. This is what I'm gathering. Is that
Yeah.
right?
I think so. And
So
they come across the king.
no, the king has all the whole king situation already happened.
Oh, that's right. We're in a whole different scene. This is where it gets like back and forth. It goes back and forth on you.
So okay, so this is what I've gathered. I'm gonna say what I think is
Okay.
what's making I see like a flow chart in my head. Okay, so Vyasudev created the Srimad Bhagavatam. He gifted it to his son, Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami is walking. He comes along the emperor who's sitting on the side of the Ganges River awaiting death. He
Yes.
recites
Yes.
the Srimad Bhagavatam to the emperor.
Yes.
There is another sage present who hears the Srimad Bhagavatam. He
Yes.
goes back to the sages who are in the forest getting ready for this ceremony um, to initiate for the beginning of Kali Yuga, and he is the one who is thus presenting the Srimad Bhagavatam to all the sages who are. Is that correct?
Okay, that sounds correct. That sounds right. I do want a chart. It's like not only do I want a chart, but
I want a chart.
I want a chart with all the names on it because
Yeah.
a lot of the names are very similar sounding.
And I think that sometimes, like we said, I think that they like there's different names for the same person, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely
so
Krishna himself has a lot of different names that they refer to him as in here.
yeah, our listeners, if you guys have a good resource for where we could
Yeah.
get said chart, a good website, or preferably, I will create my own chart. But if there's one already made and you
Yeah.
know of it, drop that in the comments, please.
I think it might be helpful actually to make it though.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. It
Yeah,
would.
yeah, we have to actually stop because like I already have read way past this. Way past
Yeah.
this. I've read like I don't know up to chapter 18 I think I want to say.
Okay.
So there's so many things that happen and I'm so excited to get into all of it. I really am.
We're just setting the foundation right now, and all these beginning chapters is really just setting the foundation.
Yeah.
And I really deeply crave to understand this foundation before I go further,
Yeah.
um, because I think it'll just set us up for success in understanding it. And I see why people do say read the commentary, right? But
I do
I
too.
I really like this whole um understanding it just through channeling Krishna's energy, which is what I feel is happening.
Yeah.
So
I feel that way too. I want to read something out of the Bhagavad Gita just because
please,
the Bhagavad Gita is where we began, honestly, like
yeah.
where we started hearing it and the words and it was what sparked the interest, what sparked the like honestly like the dreams and the visions was the Bhagavad Gita. So just because of that, there's some place in my heart for the Gita, of course, and there always will be.
Always. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna open it up, basically.
It's so funny because the Bhagavad Gita
Yeah,
felt so foreign to us at one time.
right.
And now it's like what we're going to that's like familiar. It's like that we know. And that's really a cool evolution to witness.
It's really interesting because it's talking about transcendental knowledge, and I've opened up to chapter 4, and I'm in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Um, Others who are interested in achieving self realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. So basically, we're starting to talk about like yoga, right? Like the path of yoga and all that.
Um,
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities and by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance and practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So that's really to me, it goes back to this thought of like, how do we get to enlightenment? How do we get there? And there's many paths to get there. And the Gita tells us there's different ways. We can do it through knowledge. We can do it through bhakti yoga, like the
mhm.
prayer, the devotion,
Devotional.
right? So like, however we get there, to me, it feels like it's all connected, honestly, and we're on the path that we're supposed to be. And I feel like part of the beautiful blessing of having our beloved Sri Krishna in our life right now is just like the path that he offers feels so amazing and so
Mhm.
enlightening and so like so new, even though this is like been here on earth with us this whole time we've been here. And it's like so old, so to speak, to our timeline, our human
Right.
timeline or whatever. Um, but what a gift. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful gift. And I just know that if I continue to just follow the way it feels energetically to me, I can't go wrong. And I ask
Mhm.
your forgiveness of every mistake that I make and every misunderstanding, everything that I say, pronounce incorrectly. It's not meant any other, it's me walking around appearing like a madman. Okay. This is me just like, oh man, like just wandering around in a different dimension trying to process what am I hearing and seeing and feeling and experiencing, and it's so overwhelming to have like Krishna's energy on your in your aura, in your space, like in your on your heart. It's
Yeah,
overwhelming.
it's purifying, right? And it's
Oh my
life-changing.
goodness.
It's life-changing.
I'll find myself thinking about Krishna for 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
Like I'll just be thinking about him and what he said and what it feels like to be with him. It's crazy. Like I was saying before, it almost feels like being in love, where it's like I'm just obsessed with him.
Mhm.
So I know just because of that feeling, what we're doing is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So, on that note, thank you so much for joining us. If you're still with us,
Absolutely.
we really appreciate you. And again, we hope that you have found and are finding our discussions to be enlightening for you as we look at these beautiful divine verses, slokas, words, incarnation of the Godhead, as it opens up before us and changes and transforms us. So we're doing it real time. You're with us. So
Yep.
I'm excited. And part of why we're doing this is so 10 years from now, I can look back and just go, wow, look at us
Yes.
then. We didn't even know these things yet. We were just finding
Yes.
out. What?
It is an honor to walk
Mm,
this path with you and to everybody who's listening. It is so fun and transcendental.
yeah, for sure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.